to continue our proceedings. If we are, please get the next witness.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Commissioners. Can I ask the usher to bring in the next witness?
I, Merican Mendy, do swear that I'll speak the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me God.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mendy. Welcome to the Commission.
Good afternoon, Council.
I would ask that you assume a very comfortable position. If you need to draw the mic closer to you, please feel free to do so.
Okay, thank you.
We met this morning, so you know that my name is Horeja Balagay. I will be asking you questions today on behalf of the Commissioners. Just a little bit of information about how things work in the hearing room, just for your information.
Okay.
There is simultaneous interpretation into the local languages, as you and I are speaking English. So therefore, I would still ask that you allow a few seconds after my speech before you start responding, and I will also do the same.
Okay.
Additionally, we should avoid overlapping speech because that makes the job of the interpreters much more difficult.
Okay.
For your testimony today, I would like to cover 3 main topics. So we will begin with some information about you so that the Commissioners know who you are. And we will address your biographical information, your education, as well as your professional experience. We will address the incident of April 10 and 11, 2000. But we will first deal with an incident that led to the April 10 and 11 incident. And then we will talk about the April 11 incident from your perspective.
Okay.
So are you ready to start with your testimony?
Yes, I am.
Thank you very much. For the record, can you please state your full name?
My name is Merican S.J. Mendy.
And what does SJ stand for?
Samuel Joseph.
Please allow a few seconds in between. Can you tell us your date of birth?
I was born on the 13th of January, 1963.
And where were you born, sir?
In a village called Kasewa, in the Upper Nyomi, North Bank region.
What is your current profession?
I'm a teacher. I've been a teacher all my life.
Can you tell us a little bit about your educational background as well as your professional experience?
Yes.
Including the year when you started either school or work.
Okay. I started school in 1970 at Chairman Primary School, Chairman Baidam in Lower Nyomi. Then I did 4 years there, and I moved to Kuntaya Primary School from 1975 to 1977. Then I started to the common entrance, and I got a pass to go to St. Augustine's High School. I graduated from St. Augustine's in 1982. From 1982 September to 1983, I was an unqualified teacher at St. Joseph Primary School in Basse. 1983 September to May 1985, I pursued a primary teacher's certificate at the Gambia College. Upon completion of that program, I was posted to Sankulekunda Primary School for 1 year, after which I enrolled back at the Gambia College to do the higher teachers education program from 1986 to 1988. Upon completion of that program, I got posted to Sukuta Junior Secondary School from 1988 to 1994, then transferred to Kaur from 94 to 1996, June 1996. From June 1996 to 2000, I worked at Brikamaba Upper Basic School as a principal.
Was that until 2000 or
2000, 2000, okay. 2001.
2001.
Yes, 2001.
Please continue.
Yes. From 2001, I enrolled at the University of the Gambia to pursue a degree in education. And I graduated. I started with the police. It was not possible. Customs, it was not possible. And then I wanted to join the army. It was not possible because my mother did not want me to serve, in uniform.
So you eventually became a teacher, and you've been a principal for a long time, and that's a field that you remained in for 37 years.
Yes, ma.
In April 2000, or just in 2000, throughout that year, you were the principal of Brikamaba Upper Basic School, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Prior to the April 10 and 11, 2000 incident, do you recall if there was any inter-school competition, sports competition?
Yes, as always, every year, we do compete. We will start with the inter-house, then, which is local. Then we have the regional competitions. And the athletes who qualify from the regional competition would come down to Bakau and compete with other schools. So that year, we had a team that came down to Bakau.
So these would have been very talented athletes who went through various levels of competition before ending up representing your school at the national stage, essentially.
Yes.
So do you recall the team that you sent in 2000 to Bakau to represent Brikamaba?
Yes, it was a team of students accompanied by 3 teachers. I wouldn't recall the names of all the students, but the teachers were one Ibrahim Abba and one lady, I can't recall the name again, and one Mr. Barrow, Abdullah Barrow. And in that team was a girl. She was then in grade 7, and her name is Binta Mane.
Do you recall if any incident occurred during that particular inter-schools competition?
Yes.
Please tell us what you recall, starting from how you came to know about that information.
Yes. Normally, when I send children out of, to represent the school outside, I do constant monitoring by communicating with the teachers on the ground so that I am updated about what is happening. For this particular year, as I always do, but this time around, instead of me calling, or before I could call, the teacher on the ground further told me that Binta told him that these two gentlemen were in uniform. And that is blue, the normal blue uniform of the paramilitary.
After having told you what occurred, did Mr. Ba give you any other information about how he dealt with the situation, as he was one of the teachers responsible for student welfare?
Yes. He informed me that he has reported the case at the Bakau police station, and that they have got Binta to the RVTH, now Edward Francis Small Hospital, and that she was admitted.
Did he provide you with any other information during that phone call?
No, that was all he told me.
As the principal of the school that had sent Ms. Mane to represent the school at an inter-school competition, how did you feel upon hearing that?
Very bad. I think I was very, very emotional.
Can you tell us what were some of the thoughts that were going through your mind at the time?
Well, I felt that that was not proper for such a thing to happen to such a young, innocent girl like Binta. I felt the school has been a victim.
Talented athletic-wise, because
yeah.
she was representing the school at that level.
Oh, yes. In fact, she was to represent the school in the long-distance events.
So after your conversation with Mr. Ba, having heard this devastating news, what did you do next?
Well, the next thing I did was I got hold of somebody. I can't remember if it was a teacher or just a member of the community, and went to Binta's home in Brikamanding. And I told the family about what has happened to Binta.
What was the reaction of her family upon hearing that news?
They felt very devastated. You could see it in them, especially the father.
And in fact, you told us that when Mr. Ba contacted you, and then you returned his call because you weren't present, it was already late in the evening. Is that correct?
Yes, it was already very late in the evening.
Did he tell you when the incident occurred, the incident involving Ms. Mane?
He told me, this information came to me on Saturday evening, and he told me that Binta was raped the night before.
So having relayed the news to Binta's family, what happened next? Did you take any other action?
Yes, I decided to travel down to the Combos. But because it was late, I could not travel. I decided that early in the morning I would leave Brikamaba and come down. And the father also agreed to come with me. So in the morning, that will be on Sunday morning, we travel down to the Combos.
And upon your arrival in the Combos, can you tell us where you went and what you did?
Yes. Upon arrival, we first went to Bakau police station, where we were told the case was reported. And there I found Mr. Ba was there already. And then we asked as to how far.
Or would it be Aziz Bojang?
It's at the same person, one person, yes.
Okay. So upon being told at Bakau police station that that the investigations were still ongoing, what did you do next?
Because it was very late, again in the evening, because we arrived here around 3 o'clock, it was impossible to go to the hospital to meet Binta. So we decided that in the morning of the following day, we should go to the hospital and see Binta. So in the morning, we went to the hospital.
And when you say we, who are you referring to?
I was with Binta's father and Mr. Ba.
You told us earlier that from Mr. Ba's communication with you, he told you that she was admitted at the RVH, as it was known at the time. Can you tell us what happened when you arrived at the RVH?
Yes, when we arrived at the RVH, because Binta was admitted at the gynecology unit or ward, we went to that ward. Then Binta was in the bathroom. We didn't find her on the bed. Later on, she came out. And when we saw her, we were emotionally broken to the extent that we all cried.
Can you tell us about what happened at the hospital? So, did you...
She confirmed that actually the rape happened, that there was penetration, and she confirmed that Binta was defiled, in other words, disvirgined, and that there were some traces of semen that they have observed.
Did the nurse provide you with any other information apart from that?
No, that was all she told us. But then she also said Binta would have to stay in hospital so that they would conduct some other tests to ascertain whether she is conceived or the possibility of attracting HIV.
After receiving this information, can you tell us what happened next?
There was no other questions because we were told once they conclude that they will give us a report. So we didn't ask any other question.
Do you know if a report was finally sent from the hospital?
No, we never received a report.
Did anything else happen during your visit to the hospital?
Basically, no. Apart from the conversation we had with the nurse and the fact that they told us that Binta will remain in hospital for some time for observation, there was no other conversation.
After the hospital, did you go anywhere else?
Yes. From the hospital, we went back to the police station in Bakau to inquire whether they have picked anything, any information on the case. And still, the answer we got was the investigation was on and that they will inform us if they lay hands on something.
Did the police provide any information suggesting that they had a lead, for example, on who the alleged perpetrator could have been?
No. They did not give us anything, any information to suggest that they were making a lead on the case. All we were told was the investigation was on.
So can you tell us who was at the police station with you? You mentioned that on this trip you were with Binta's father, and Mr. Ba was also present at the first trip to the police station and also at the hospital. Was Mr. Ba also present during your second trip to the police station?
Yes, Mr. Ba was always present, and I believe Binta's father was also with us.
So after your second visit to the police station, can you tell us what happened next? Did you remain in the Combers or did you return to Brikama?
No, when we left the police station, after the second visit, the parade has been cancelled. And then after that, Mr. Ba himself had to travel back to Brikama.
When you were first informed of the possibility of conducting an identification parade in order for Binta to identify her alleged rapist, what was your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction, and in fact I told Ibrahim on the phone.
Ibrahim being Mr. Ba.
Mr.
Right?
Ba, yes. That I am not convinced that Binta would be able to identify anybody. Should there be any identification parade? One, Binta was very young at the time, at the age of 14, probably 15. Two, the incident happened at night in a place that was very strange to him or to her, being her first time in the Combos. So I was a bit skeptical about the outcome.
And you told us that initially it was cancelled and then they scheduled it again, and Mr. Ba traveled to the Combos for the identification parade.
Yes, we were called and informed that there will be an identification parade. And Mr. Ba had to travel to represent me in the Combos.
What information did Mr. Ba provide you about that identification parade?
That a parade was organized at the Banjul headquarters in Banjul, and Binta was there, and that Binta was unable to identify anybody.
Which, from what you've said, did not surprise you?
Yes.
Yes, as in it did not surprise you?
It did not surprise me that she was not able to identify.
Do you recall how long after the incident that this identification parade took place?
It was within the first 2 weeks of the incident.
Following the identification parade, at some point did Ms. Mane eventually come back to the school to Brikamaba Upper Basic School?
Yes. Binta came back to her native village, and she did actually come back to the school because we were involved in talking to the parents to convince them to allow her to come back to school. And finally, she did come back to school.
Did she stay in school upon her return?
She did not stay. She stayed for a very short period and had to leave again.
And why was that the case?
Well, perhaps family intervention could be one, but I believe perhaps stigmatization could be the greater contributing factor, like other colleagues of hers pointing fingers at her or calling her names, probably.
Essentially, other students possibly teasing her or taunting her for something that was in no way her fault.
That could be possible.
You mentioned that the school made efforts in order to convince her to come back to the school. Was that the only suggestion that the school made?
Being aware of the stigmatization issue, we suggested to the family if Binta could be relocated to another school so that at least she will go there as a new person, without anybody knowing anything about her. That was a suggestion that was put to the family.
So from what you've said, the school wanted to have her back and made efforts in order to get her to come back. Is that
Obviously,
correct?
yes. The school very much wanted her to come back to school. Because, one, Binta, I would say, was a very useful student, talented, and we hope we were going to be able to nurture, the talents that she had. She could have become an athlete of an international standard. She could have become a national athlete and maybe represent the country someday. So we had wanted to get her back to school.
So when she finally came back, and then for a brief period of time, and then she left, how did the school feel about that loss?
It was a great loss to the school because as a teacher, as an educationist, and looking at the policy, the education policy, which does not encourage students dropping out. If you have a student who dropped out, especially a talented student, then it was a great loss to the school. And I believe we all felt it, that we have lost something.
Can you tell us what kind of impact the incident that occurred to Binta, so the alleged rape that she suffered, can you tell us what impact that had, if any, on the students of the school as well as the teachers?
Well, for us as a school, it had very big negative impact on us, because Binta represented or was there to represent the school, not to represent herself, but for the school. So we felt very much saddened by the incident as a family in that school.
Did that incident in any way have an impact on either the school's policy or approach when it comes to student welfare, especially students that are sent to another location to represent the school?
Well, our policy had always been that when we are to send students to represent the school, first we have to obtain permission from the parents, which is normal. The parents would have to allow their children to travel. Even after Binta's ordeal, we still pursue that policy.
Did the school receive any further information from the police regarding their investigations?
No. Up to this day, we haven't got any information. Now, when that identification parade failed, I believe that was the end of the case for them.
Following what happened to Ms. Bintamane, can you tell us what happened in April 2000 in connection with the student demonstrations? Was your school in any way, or were your students in any way involved?
Yes. The students in Brikama were involved in the demonstration.
Can you tell us what led to their involvement in the demonstration?
Well, I think the case of Bintamane contributed a lot in getting our students involved, because they were very much affected by that case. And I believe they were very much angered after knowing that Binta was raped. So, of course, if there is anything that would at least attract the attention of the authorities, they will surely be involved because they were affected.
When the student demonstrations occurred on the 10th of April 2000, can you tell us when was the first time that you heard about what was happening in the West Coast region?
Yes. For us, the 10th was not, would I say, not observed, because the students in Brikama did not participate on the 10th. But on that day, around 10 a.m., a teacher called my attention to what was happening in the combos and said, "Do you know that there is a demonstration in Combo?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm just hearing it." Then, at that time, many people don't have cell phones, but some teachers in the school had. And I observed some of them being constantly on their phone. And I decided to ask. And I was told again, it's like confirming the information that I got before, that students in Combo were demonstrating.
Were you provided with any other information about the demonstrations, either the reason for the demonstration or the events, what occurred during the demonstrations?
Nobody told me as to the reason, because perhaps at that time we wouldn't know the reason. But considering the fact that there were 2 incidents that involved students, and seeing the students or hearing that the students are demonstrating, then one could conclude that those 2 incidents were the cause of the demonstration.
Well, you've referred to one incident, which is the incident regarding Ms. Mane. What was the second incident?
Yes, we also heard about the case of Ibrahima Barry in Brikama. And that actually happened, I think, almost at the same time that Binta was raped, or shortly before or after.
And what do you recall regarding Mr. Barry's incident, Mr. Ibrahima Barry?
Well, we heard from sources that Ibrahima was a student, I think, at Methodist, upper basic school at the time. We also heard that the first information I got was Ibrahima was made to carry a lot of bags of cement. Then later on, from the testimonies here, we also understand he was forced to eat cement.
That's what you heard at the time?
That's right? What we heard at the time.
Upon hearing that there were demonstrations in the Combos, did you take any steps in relation to the students at your school? Did you speak to the students at all about the demonstration?
I did not summon any assembly. I did not talk to the students, but I advised the teachers to keep the information to themselves. So that, and actually they did, because we continued for the rest of the day without any incident.
What was your reason for advising the teachers to keep that information away from the students?
Well, I thought that the demonstration would happen for just one day. And I was like trying to buy time, so that I thought if it had ended in the Combos on the 10th, then there will be no demonstrations in the provinces the next day.
So your objective was to keep the students from knowing about the demonstrations, but you did not decide to actually address the demonstrations and advise the students about the demonstrations. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you tell us what happened later that day?
When we closed school, well, the students went home, and usually when I close in the evening, I'll go to town. Then after some time, I'll come back, because I was living in the quarters in the school. But for that day, I did not go out, because, well, I think emotionally, I think I was saddened by the fact that there was a demonstration. I felt not wanting to go out. So I went to...
Sorry, just to interrupt you. What was it about the occurrence of a demonstration that made you sad?
We also heard that some people were killed.
Do you know which people were killed at that point on the 10th, from what you heard? Did you know which people were killed, whether they were students or not students?
Well, we heard that, I heard that students were killed.
Did you, during the course of that day, did you have any interaction with the law enforcement officers?
What happened on that day was that a CID officer came to the school and asked me whether I have noticed anything about my students. And I said, no, I did not. I even told him we are continuing with our classes. So.
You said CID. What does CID stand for?
I believe it should mean Criminal Investigation Officer.
Division.
Or division, I don't know, division, yes.
You said a CID officer.
Yes, CID officer, yes.
Do you recall the name of the officer that you spoke to?
I know the surname is Dabo, but later on I was told the first name is Fakeba.
So the only question that this CID officer asked you was whether you noticed anything strange about your students. That was it?
Yes, and he went further to say there is a demonstration in the combos.
Was that the extent of the conversation that you had with him?
Yes.
So after the conversation with the CID officer, what happened next?
Yes, we continue on with our lessons until closing time.
And what happened after classes ended and school closed that day?
Like I said before, I did not go out. I stayed in my residence. I went home. Then I tuned on the television. I think this was around 8 o'clock. I tuned on the television and I saw the images of the demonstration, come on TV. Then after a while, I had to switch off.
What do you recall about the images that you saw on your screen?
I saw security officers running after people.
What else do you recall seeing?
Yeah, those are the images. I didn't see, the images of people being shot. Well, perhaps maybe the television did not show them, or at that time, yeah.
But what you recall seeing is security officers running after students.
Yes.
So students were running away from the security officers.
Yes.
Please continue. What happened after you saw those images and then decided to switch off the television or tune into a different station? I'm not sure which one you did.
The reason why I switched off, normally in the evenings, students will come to the school to watch television, or they'll come and we slot in a video cassette. So I knew that, anytime from that point, some of them would come back. Knowing that this thing has happened, they would want to watch the TV to see what has happened in the combos.
So up until this point, your instinct was not to discuss the incident with the students, but rather to stop them from seeing what was happening That's how you chose to deal with this. Is that correct?
Yes.
So when the students arrived, what happened?
When they arrived, they told me they want to watch the television. And I told them, no, the television is not on. I tried, but it's not on. And then we slotted in a cassette, and we were there watching. Then I went into the room. After some time, I went into the room. But before I came back, I believe one of them had switched on the TV, and the images were on.
Which images were on?
The demonstration images.
Can you tell us what happened next?
Well, when they saw the images, they started talking about them. They started to feel agitated. I believe there was anger growing in them.
And do you recall what they were angry about? What in particular they were angry about?
They were angry about those, students being pursued by the security. I think that's actually what made them angry.
In the course of their discussions, did they provide any other information about what they had heard concerning the demonstrations, apart from the images that they saw on TV?
No, they did not tell me about what they heard or what they were told.
So when you noticed that the students who were present there were agitated, some were angry, what happened next?
Well, we continued to sit there because I did not want to send them away, because sending them away means they could go have a discussion and take a decision, about the demonstration. So I definitely did not want them to participate in the demonstration.
Did you speak to them or provide them with any kind of information or guidance considering how they felt at the time?
Yes. I urged them, I appealed to them, if I may put it that way, not to participate in the demonstration.
And did you tell them why?
Yeah, all I told them was that it could be dangerous.
Did anything else happen that evening?
Yes. As we continue to watch, because I would remove the TV outside so that at least there will be more space for anybody who comes. We were there watching, and then all of a sudden we heard voices, commanding voices for us to disperse. And when I turn around, because when you sit, your back is towards the gate. So when I turn around, I saw 5 people. 4 of them were in green camouflage, that is military uniform, and the other one was in police uniform. So they shouted at us to disperse, and at that point, the students left.
I just want to make sure we're clear. At that point, you were at your home, in your residence, is that correct?
Yes.
So when the police and the military arrived to tell you and the students to disperse, did they come into your house, into your home?
They they came into the yard, into the compound, the school, the residence compound. Sorry, the compound of the residence.
So they just entered your residence just like that and said people should disperse?
Yes.
Did they say anything else?
Nothing else. They just ordered that we should disperse. And when the students left, I was asked to switch off and pack. And I did that. Then before they left, the man in police uniform suggested to me that if I fear for my life, I may try and spend the night somewhere instead of in my house.
And why exactly would you have been in fear for your life at that time?
Well, I don't know why he said that, because at that point, up to that point, I have not received any threat from anybody.
Did you heed his advice, or did you stay at your residence?
I spent the night with a friend in the primary school, which is just across the road from my school.
Considering that you had not received any threat, and at that point it appeared there was no reason for you to be fearful, why did you go and spend the night elsewhere? I'm trying to understand your state of mind at the time.
Yeah, because I believe they are the security people. They are in the town. They might have had something concerning me. And for that reason, I decided to go to my friend.
And where was your friend's residence located?
Inside the primary school.
Did anything else happen that night?
No. After that, nothing else happened.
So let's move into the next day, which is the 11th of April, 2000. Can you tell us what happened that day?
Yes. In the morning, when I got up, I had my bath, I dressed up and told my friend, who was a headmaster at the school, that I was going back to my school. But then when I stood in front of the house, because if you stand where his house is, you could actually see the gate to my house.
Sorry, what was the name of your friend?
Mustafa Njai.
Please continue.
Yes, when I stood there and looked, towards my residence, I saw a man standing at the gate, dressed in military uniform. Then I told my friend, I think there is a soldier at my gate. And he personally advised that I should not go back there. But then I said, no, I need to go back because students will be coming to school.
Base was to Brikamaba.
I think Kudang was the closest.
And you also mentioned that sometimes soldiers would be passing through Brikamaba to get to Basse as well.
Yes.
Okay. But Kudang was the closest.
I believe so.
Please continue telling us what happened. You saw the military, a man in camouflage standing at your gate.
Yes.
And so your friend advised you not to go to your residence. What did you do?
Yeah, I told him I would go because I need to be there so that those students would be coming. I would tell them to go home to avoid being involved. So I went. Upon arriving at the gate, the man stopped me and said, no, I will not enter. I said, no, I am the principal. And I need to be there so that whoever comes, I'll tell them to go home. Then he allowed me in.
At that point in time, nothing was happening in Brikamaba, is that correct?
Absolutely nothing.
What time of the morning was that?
It was around 8 o'clock.
Did the security forces provide you with any information about the measures that they were taking prior to you being stopped by that military officer?
No information was given to me prior. But when I asked, he said they were on orders. They were giving orders not to allow anybody to go into the school.
Did he by any chance tell you where that order came from?
No.
But the order was simply not to allow anyone to enter the school.
That was what he told me.
So please continue telling us what happened after that.
Yes, I got into the school. I didn't, in fact, go into my house. I went straight into the school compound. And when I got to the school compound, I found that there were already some students inside. And I think a few teachers were also there. So when I looked towards the school gates, because there were two gates, the one to the residence and the other one to the into the school compound, I saw some students standing at the gates. Most of them were girls, in fact.
And just to clarify, at which entrance did you meet this soldier? Which of the entrances to the school was it?
The entrance to the school staff quarters.
So to the residence?
Yes, to the residence.
And when you saw the group of students, they were close to the main entrance of the school, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Please continue.
Yes, at that point I asked one of the teachers to go and tell them to go home, that there will be no school, that they should go home until the next day. And then I went into my office. Whilst there, some students came and joined me there. Then, after a while, some more students came in again. And that was the time that they informed me that the head boy and the head girl, the head boy and the assistant head boy were arrested in the night.
Do you recall the names of the head boy and assistant head boy at the time?
The head boy was Hamadi Sow, and the assistant was Malik Jallo.
So the student informed you that both of them were arrested and detained?
Yes, they did.
Did they tell you who arrested them and where they were being detained?
They did not tell me who arrested them, but they told me that they were detained at the police station.
That would, of course, be the Brikamaba police station, right?
Yes.
Did the students tell you anything else, or was there any additional discussion between you and the students?
Yes, there was. They said to me they want me to go to the station and secure the release of those students. And I said, fine. But before that, I had to call the police station to confirm whether those two were detained. And they confirmed to me that they were there.
Did the police tell you why they had detained the two students, the head boy and the assistant head boy?
No, they did not tell me.
What did you do after your conversation with the police station?
Yes, I promised the students that I will go and talk to the police. But I suggested to them that they should disperse and go home. But some of them wanted to go with me if I would be going. During that discussion, a soldier came inside the office and said, I quote, "Master, tell your children to go away," unquote.
Do you recall if it was the same soldier that you spoke to at the residence gate, or was it a different soldier?
I can't recall because I didn't have time to look at the person very closely to be able to recognize him at the time.
And at that point, do you recall how many security personnel you saw around your school?
Yes, apart from the one at the gate to the residence, I was also informed that there was another soldier at the gate, at the entrance to the school compound.
So when this soldier told you to tell your children, meaning the students, to leave, what happened next?
The students insisted that they would not leave. Then there was a bit of push and pull, and finally they all ran out of the office.
At that point, what was the soldier doing?
Well, when they ran out, the soldier followed them. And then I came back and I saw them running towards the gate. The soldier was running after them too.
Do you know why the soldier was running after the students?
Perhaps, I don't know why. I don't know the reason why he was running after them. Perhaps he may want to secure the gate or whatever. But that would not be an option since he has asked me to tell them to go.
At this point, did you observe anything else?
Apart from the students running out and the soldier pursuing them, because when they ran out, they ran into the village, and then the soldier pursued them into the village.
So it wasn't about the soldier securing the school gates, because he ran past the gates and still followed the students who were running. Is that correct?
Yes, he did. He did run past the gate.
What else happened?
Yes, at that point, we had a gunshot, followed by more gunshots. And I came out of the school, went to the primary school because there were some students who gathered there. I went and asked them to disperse and go home.
Do you recall where the gunshots were coming from? Which direction? Could you tell?
They were coming from the direction of the village. The school was west of the village, so it was coming from the east.
And was that the direction in which the students ran and the soldier was following them?
Yes.
Just the point of clarification, all the soldiers that you saw, you've mentioned at least 2, were they armed?
The one that came to my office was armed, and the one I met at the gate was also armed.
And do you by any chance know what kind of weapons they were armed with? I know you're not a soldier, but
Thank you.
if you do know, please.
Yeah, I'm not a soldier, but I watch films. And I saw with them the type of gun that they will call AK-47.
So when you heard the gunshots coming from the direction of the village, which is where the students had ran and a soldier was running after them, what happened next?
Well, like I said, I went to the primary school, where some of my students were gathered. and asked them to go home. Then I proceeded across the road, the Banjul-Basse highway, into a compound just by the roadside, where some of the teachers were renting. In fact, they refer to that compound as teachers' quarters. Then there were these other students on the road, and some soldiers further up the road. If you are coming from Banjul, going to Basse, you have the students first, and then further up, there were soldiers. And the students were picking stones and throwing them in the direction of the soldiers.
So just to make sure we're clear, on the road Banjul to Basse, the soldiers would have been closer to the Basse side?
Yes.
And the soldiers that you saw, do you recall roughly how many soldiers?
I saw 4 soldiers.
And you said at that point the students were throwing stones at the soldiers?
Well, in the direction of the soldiers.
In the direction of the soldiers.
Yes.
Do you recall the distance between where the students were and where the soldiers were? Was it a short distance? Was it a long distance?
By estimate, it could be more than 80 meters, 80 to 100 meters.
And so when I said the students were throwing the stones at the security forces, you said in the direction of?
Yes.
Because that was quite a big gap between where they were and where the soldiers were.
Yes, that was a gap, actually.
What was the reaction of the soldiers to the students throwing stones at them?
Well, there was shooting.
Shooting by who?
Well, the people who possessed the guns at the time, and these were the soldiers.
And just to clarify this, from what you could see, were any of the students armed with guns?
No. My students don't come to school with guns, and they were in uniform, so they had no guns.
So the soldiers were firing back. Can you tell us what happened?
Yes. As we were in that compound, all of a sudden we saw Musa Kanaji being brought by some other students into the next compound, because that was where he and his 2 brothers and his sister were living. So we saw blood coming out of his body, and I went together with some of the students and even some teachers. We went, and there was this other teacher, Mr. Mbai Ibrahima. He was teaching French at the time, and he was a first aid, and I believe he is still a Red Cross volunteer. So he came and rendered first aid treatment to Musa by, I think he applied some cotton, and he used his shirt to tie the wound. And then Musa was helped to the health center by other students.
Do you recall which part of Musa Kanaji's body was shot, from what you could observe at the time?
I wouldn't be able to say whether it's left or right, but it's in the lower torso.
And do you know if this Musa Kanaji is someone who's appeared before the TRC or not?
I heard that he appeared, but I did not watch his testimony.
Apart from, so you mentioned that it was only the soldiers who were shooting. And Musa Kanaji was shot during this incident. At the time, did you see any other security forces with weapons apart from the soldiers?
No, I only saw the soldiers.
And just to make sure it's clear, you did not see Musa Kanaji's, the shooting of Musa Kanaji, but you were present when his body was brought?
Not body, because he did not die.
Just to clarify, when he was brought and you realized that he suffered a gunshot wound?
Yes, I was present.
Apart from Musa Kanaji, was anyone else, any other student shot as far as you're aware?
Yes. 2 other students of mine were shot. Usman Sabali was shot in the chest, and he died. He was confirmed death upon arrival at the Bansang hospital, but I believe he died before reaching Bansang.
Did you have occasion to see Mr. Usman Sabali when he was shot?
Yes.
Did you see the actual shooting?
Well, I would not see the shooting, but when he was brought, because like I said, we were, after Musa was evacuated to the health center, we went back to the previous compound where we were staying. And then shortly after, about 10 minutes after that, Usman was brought into that compound by other students. They came with him, lay him down in front of us, and they were trying to give him water, but he was not swallowing the water. Then we decided to take off his shirt and tie his wound, and then he was helped to the hospital.
Apart from the bleeding that you've mentioned, did you notice anything else about Mr. Usman Sabali at that time?
Yes, Usman, when he was brought, he could not stand, of course. He was bleeding. And where he was shot, one could conclude that Usman will not make it.
Were you provided any information by the students or people who brought Mr. Usman Sabali about any other information about what happened to him?
Well, all they told me was, Master, they have shot this one.
So after Mr. Usman Sabali was taken to the health center, what happened next?
After Usman was taken, I decided to go to the health center. So I went along with one other teacher, a Quranic teacher. He's late now, one Mr. Kanyi. So we took the back way to go to the health center. And but before we got there, I asked him for us to go to the police station first, so that we can confirm the presence of the head boy and the assistant head boy. So we went to the police station, and I found Malik.
Sorry, prior to that, did the students provide you with any information concerning either the types of bullets that were being used or any information in relation to magazines?
Yes, they did. Because
before or after you went to the police station?
No, before.
Please tell us about that.
Yes. There was this guy, one Bukari Jabula. Whilst we were trying to attend to Usman, he came with a magazine, the AK-47 magazine, and gave it to me. And when we looked, it was fully loaded with bullets. And because we were there to attend to Usman, I just passed it on to one Mr. Njai Lamin.
So just to be clear, you were provided with the AK-47 magazine, not the weapon itself, just the ammunition.
Just the ammunition.
And it was unused at that time.
Maybe partly used because we didn't know how many bullets were there, but it was almost full.
And what did you observe about the magazines?
Yeah, it contained bullets.
Are you able to describe the bullets at all?
Sharp pointed bullets, metal heads, I believe. Yeah, metal heads.
And so when this student, Bukari Jabula, provided you with the magazine, you started to tell us what you did with the magazine. Please continue.
Yes, I passed it on to Mr. Njai Lamin. What I was made to understand later was that he traveled to the Combos because that evening he left Brikababa together with some other teachers and came down to the Combos. So he had it with him, and I understand because after the incident, a commission was set up where people could go and testify. And Lamin went to the commission to testify and presented the magazine as evidence.
Now, the student that provided you with the magazine, did he give you any information about where he got the magazine or where he found it?
He picked it from the road.
Did he tell you anything else about the magazine, or was that it?
No, he did not.
So you told us about two shootings that occurred. The shooting of Mr. Musa Kanaji, who was then taken to the health center. And then you talked about Mr. Usman Sabali. And based on his injuries, you felt that he wouldn't make it. Tell us what happened to the two of them as far as you recall.
Yeah, Usman, Musa was the first to be evacuated to the health center in Brikamaba. And when Usman was shot and carried to the health center, like I said, I decided to go to the health center. So I took along this other teacher with me. But on the way, we had to pass through the police station. And I saw Malik and Hamadi. So the students who were arrested the night before.
The head boy and the assistant.
The head boy and the assistant, yes.
Yes.
And we didn't spend much time there because whilst we were there, there was this crowd of people were gathering, and they were moving towards the police station. Then the other teacher said to me, we have to go away from here because it may not be safe.
But prior to that, upon your arrival at the police station, did the police provide you with any information about why the two students had been arrested?
Nothing at all.
Do you recall how old the students were, the head boy and the assistant head boy?
Both of them were in grade 9 at the time, and they will be about 18, 19 years.
Do you know if, well, let me start that again. The police didn't tell you why they had been arrested. Did you have a chance to speak to the boys at all, the students?
Well, all I said to them was, so you decided to participate in the demonstration. That was the only statement I made to them.
And what did they say?
Nothing.
As far as you know at that point in time, had they been provided with any information, or had they been allowed to inform either their family members or to speak to a lawyer, for example?
I don't think their families knew at that point that they were at the police station. And obviously, there was no lawyer.
And why do you think that at that point their families probably didn't know about where they were?
I think it was still in the early hours of the day. And, well, they may not see them. Perhaps they would think that they are engaged in the demonstration, but not that they were. Otherwise, I would have found the family members there at the police station. Because Malik lived in Brikamaba, but the head boy was from Fulabanda.
Did you provide the two students with any kind of assistance upon understanding that the police would not release them?
Yes, later in the day, because when I got to the health center, and already I found that Musa and Usman were already placed in the ambulance, so I decided to go with them to Bansan Hospital. When I came back later in the day, I went back to the police station and asked if they could be provided with food. The request was accepted, so I got them food from a restaurant.
And at that point, do you know if their family members had been informed?
I think at that point, the family members were aware that these boys were in detention. Because I came back around 5 o'clock. And obviously, from morning up to that time, the parents would have been aware.
You told us that your only statement to them was you decided to participate in the demonstration, even though you didn't know the reason for their arrest. When you returned to the police station, were you at any point told about the reason for their arrest?
No, I did not ask, and nobody told me.
Do you know what eventually happened to the two of them?
Yes. What happened to them was, because this was on the 11th, on the 12th in the morning, I had to go to Bansang again. I went with Usman Sabali's family, together with two members of my PTA committee members. One, Mamare Balde, who was the chairperson of the committee, and another PTA member. So we collected the body of Usman, and he was buried around 5, I think it was 5, at Kerewan Sambasire, his home. When I got back to Brikamaba, I went to the police station again, and I was informed that they were taken to the Janjambure prison.
As far as you're aware, was it only the two of them, the two students, the head boy and the assistant head boy, who were taken to Janjangbure, or were additional people taken to the prison?
I wouldn't know about other civilians, but I think it was not only Malik and Hamadi. I can't remember how many of them were there, but I believe there were more than 2.
Meaning other students?
Yeah, I think there were other arrests.
So other students arrested and then taken to Janjangbure prison?
Yes.
You told us what happened to Mr. Usman Savali. What about Mr. Musa Kanaji, as far as you recall?
Yes. Upon arrival at Bansang, Usman was pronounced dead by the doctors, and Musa was admitted in Bansang. And I think at first they wanted to conduct a surgery on him in Bansang because when they were asking for blood, I even volunteered that if it was necessary, I would donate. But later in the day, I think that decision was revoked and he was referred to Banjul.
Apart from Mr. Musa Kanaji, do you know if any other student was injured and hospitalized?
Yes, when we were in Bansang, the elder brother of Musa was also brought in. He suffered, some wounds or sustained some wounds. This was Ansumana Kanaji. But for him, he was treated in Bansang.
You said he was beaten. Did you hear by who?
I was not there when he was beaten. He only told me he was beaten, and then he sustained some injuries.
So what I'm trying to drive at is he didn't tell you who beat him. Is that correct?
No, it would be the security, of course. The parents would not beat them.
Apart from Ansumana Kanaji as well, do you recall any other student who was injured or killed as a result of the April 11, 2000 incident in Brekamaba?
Well, later on, I was made to know that a primary school student was also shot and killed.
Do you recall the name of the primary school child?
No, I wouldn't.
What about the age?
Well, he was in primary school, so he must be very young.
And again, who actually, who's responsible for that?
Well, the person who shot him, and it was already security that were armed.
You told us that some of the students, including your head boy and assistant head boy, were then transferred to Janjanbureh prison. Can you tell us what happened to them?
Well, they were detained at the prison in Janjanbureh. Like after the burial of Usman, which was on a Wednesday, I consulted with the vice chairperson of the PTA, Madam Mamare Balde, and one Tombong Kuyate. And we agreed to visit them, in the prison. So on Thursday afternoon, the three of us went to Janjanbureh with the intention of getting to the prison to see these boys.
Can you tell us what you observed when you arrived at Janjanbureh prison? What was the condition of the boys?
We were not allowed into the prison in the first place. When we arrived in Janjanbureh, we went to the regional office, that is the regional education office, to tell the PO our mission in Janjanbureh, and perhaps to get him or somebody to accompany us to the prison. But when we got there, we found him equally devastated because his office was burnt. And Maybe perhaps because of that, he could not accompany us. From there, we went to the police station and requested that we would want to go to the prison and see these boys. But again, we were told visitors were not allowed, so we had to go back.
And what eventually happened to the students, as far as you recall?
Yeah, eventually they were released.
Do you recall when they were released? How long after their arrest were they released?
No, I couldn't recall that. But I believe they spent a couple of days in the prison.
Did the school take any other steps in relation to the students that had been arrested? You told us of your attempt to visit the prison, which you couldn't do. Did the school take any other steps in relation to what happened to them?
No, when we were denied access, we thought that was the end of the road. So we just applied the wait and see tactics.
What do you say to the allegation that during the demonstration you were at the police station and you had sought refuge there? So you did not, in fact, witness the demonstrations?
That was false.
During the incident of 11th April, you told us that on the 10th, when you heard the news about what happened in the Combers, your reaction or your approach was not to address it with the students, correct?
Yes.
Considering what happened on the 11th of April, in hindsight, was that the best approach to not address it, or would it have been better to assemble the students and discuss what was happening at the time, as well as provide some kind of guidance or advice to them?
Well, I thought it not wise enough to call the students to assembly and go back, refer to that fateful day. Now, bringing back those memories to them would have been disastrous. Even if they do not act physically, then psychologically it would have affected them. So I thought the best thing was to allow it to die down naturally instead of calling for assembly and addressing them.
So in essence, you felt that calling them to an assembly and addressing the issue would have made matters worse. That's your perspective, right?
Maybe not worst physically, but definitely I never wanted to refer to those incidences and bring back those memories in their mind.
And the final question from me, considering everything that you've testified to, what happened to Ms. Mane, what you heard at the time, you as well as the other students and teachers concerning Mr. Barry, as well as the incidents of April 10th and 11th, can you tell us what impact this had generally on teachers and students?
Well, for Binta, I believe her rape had a very, very serious impact on her as a person. It has caused her to lose something valuable, in our culture, what we, deemed valuable in a girl. She has lost her virginity. Her image in the community as well as in the school was destroyed. the family lost something very valuable in Binta, and that has actually affected her education. Without the rape, she would have stayed on in school and perhaps complete her school. And who knows, it's 18 years today, what she would have become after those 18 years. For the school, it was a great loss that Binta was out of school, despite our efforts to bring her back. So I think the consequences were very, very devastating.
And in relation to the April 11th incident?
Well, we lost Usman at that tender age. See, he was in grade 8. And I've often said he will be the most remembered of all the students that have passed through me. Because in death, his features will never change. With others, when you part with them, after some time you meet, you cannot recognize them because they have grown. So he will remain the most memorable student to me. The family also has lost, and the nation has lost as well. For Musa, he's been incapacitated for the rest of his life. Because from the reports, we understand the damaged kidney was removed, and he now lives on only one kidney. Who knows? If that kidney has a problem, that would end his life.
Thank you very much for answering my questions, Mr. Mendy. Mr. Chairman, I hand over to the commissioners for any additional questions. That's it for this witness from my end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Counsel, and thank you very much, Mr. Mendy, for a very detailed and useful testimony. One quick question before we turn to the commissioners if they have any questions to pose. From your level as principal in Brikama, were there any reports that you sent on this incident and your own involvement to the authorities above you, regional, central government or ministry? Were there any reports that were drawn up that could be part of the record of this incident, at least from your perspective in Brikama Bar?
I couldn't get that clear.
Did you draw up any reports? Did you make any reports to the ministry or to the local?
No, sorry. No, we didn't write a report to the ministry. But what we do in schools, we have what we call logbooks. And whatever incident happened in a school, we write it in the logbook. But there was no official report sent to the ministry.
Thank you very much. You have any, Mr. Kinte? Commissioner Kinte, you have the floor, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mendy. You informed us that on the 10th, one of the staff told you that there was a demonstration, student demonstration in the combos. Did you know why the students were demonstrating, the reasons behind their demonstration for that particular first moment? It's my first question.
Okay, second, no. If and conclude that they were demonstrating, in solidarity with those students.
The second part is, would that not have sent you more serious signals If it were only Ibrahima, we would say it's an isolated issue. It doesn't concern Brikama Ba so much. But if you bring the two together as your formula, it means Brikama Ba should have been very vigilant and in a more state of preparedness as to eventualities. And in this case, I get back to the council's comment that it was wiser that you had promptly called an assembly, summoned an assembly, and counseled the students to have prevented the matter, because it looks like it is inevitable, since the two components of it, one is in combo and the other is on the very feet. Why weren't you so sensitive about it?
Well, I would say I was very sensitive about it. We were trying to apply preventive measures, because I believe at that time, if I called assembly and told the students that we are closing school, for example, because there is a demonstration in Combo, that could have possibly sparked, the demonstration itself at that time. So I thought that perhaps, yes, it is happening in Combo, maybe it's just for one day. I mean, if it was over on Monday, then it would not happen in Brikama Ba. So that was the strategy I applied.
My next question is, when you went, I understand the senior students or the student leaders were arrested prior to the 11th. That's on the 10th in the evening. Am I correct?
That was what I was informed.
Fine. Wouldn't it have been preempting and prejudicing when you met them the following day, instead of asking them what happened or asking the police what happened so that you will be informed about the state, rather than concluding that they, on the whole, they were also part of the demonstration?
No, I did not conclude that on the whole. My reaction was because all along they have been promising. When we sat there and they saw the images, I said to them, please, don't be part of it. That was in the night. So I didn't know that there would be, and after all, at that point, because they were arrested, they did not actually participate. My comment was general, not to the two of them, but to the entire student population at large.
So there were other students in the police when you are saying on the whole, you are also part of the demonstration?
No, these were the two I saw, Malik and Hamadi.
How could it have applied to others who weren't present?
Because they demonstrated. These were the ones that were actually active in the demonstration. So it's not a statement that would blame them, but I was surprised that they actually took part in the demonstration. And because they were student leaders, perhaps my thinking was there was a discussion prior to their arrest.
Were there any activities relating to the demonstration the previous evening, like chanting, stoning, or whatever?
Not at all.
So then they were suspects and not actual culprits?
They were suspects, yes.
So one could not have said, upon their apprehension, they are already in custody, they couldn't have been in the demonstration. No, so the remark was not fitting, in my opinion.
Well, perhaps not so, but the remark was made generally.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Deputy Chair, you have the floor, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mendy. I have two questions. One is in relation to the handling of Binta when she went back to school. You have said you had discovered a lot of potential in Binta and you really wanted her back. But what measures did you put in place to protect her from further harassment within the school? I'll ask the second after you.
If Binta had stayed in school, we were going to do everything possible to protect her. I myself am a trained counselor, guidance and counseling personnel. I would have offered that service to make sure that Binta was protected in school. But of course, within that short period that she stayed, she was withdrawn from school and taken away. So at that point, there was no other thing we could do. Because knowing that Binta suffered because of the school, we would not just have, let her, be. There were even plans that Binta would not have to pay anything in school, lunch and everything. So even if I did not provide, teachers would have provided. But the school was ready to make sure Binta feels comfortable in school. But we could not do anything when the parents withdrew her.
Thank you. I think maybe you left the services too late. You could have started providing it from day one when she returned. But thanks for that answer. The second one is in relation to the ages of the children. Don't you think 18, 19 is a bit high for a grade 9 student, seeing the entry age is 7 years?
In the provinces, it may not. Taking into consideration the time, some of them go to school late. So it may not. That was just an estimate because normally they will come to grade 7 at the age of 14. Okay, so they would be around 17 when they get to grade 9.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Imam Jallo, you have the floor, please.
As a very seasoned educationist, we have seen these problems happen to our children. What advice would you give the ministry to put in place to ensure that this type of situation do not arise in the future? Thank you.
Well, I think counseling is necessary, talking to students. We teachers, we do talk to students a lot. We advise them. At that time when this problem was brewing up, I don't know, the interaction between the students and the ministry at the time. But I want to believe that a timely intervention from the ministry would have been, had a very big impact in preventing this thing happening. Well, when the case of Ibrahim Abari was being discussed, maybe the ministry could have suggested, let us close school for a week or two, and then send the children on holidays. Perhaps that would have minimized the impact. That's my opinion. Did I answer your question? Yeah.
What I want to appeal is on the issue of Binta. We have all heard about our case. What I want now to appeal is that let people just let our case be, let not the case be discussed. Because now she's now with her children, she's now married. And that is the only appeal I make.
Okay.
Thank you very much. If there are no further questions. Hold on a second. Yeah.
Mendy,
Yes,
earlier on, I recall you said because of the harassment and the stigmatization on Binta, you advised for her relocation.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so the result of your inability to do something about it, to resolve it, was not hinged on the parents' withdrawal, her withdrawal by the parents. You advised the withdrawal.
Yes, we did.
For relocation.
not withdrawal, look, relocation. Withdrawal would mean taking her completely unsafe. The victims of whatever unfortunate event, whether it is school demonstration or any other event, perhaps at that time they never had hope that somebody someday will listen to them and hear their story. Now that the TRRC has come, we all have the opportunity to hear the stories. And having heard the stories, I think the victims still have the hope that someday something will come out of it. They will be taken care of. If I may refer to the case of Musa, Binta, who were directly attached to me, notwithstanding the others are also very, very important. I think these people need to be rehabilitated, either medically or psychologically. And Binta is still young. I believe she has potential. She can make a living on her own if she is assisted in any way possible. So I want to appeal to the Commission to ensure that after hearing all these testimonies, I believe the Commission will be in a position or is in position to advise the authorities to really consider the plight of these people. I think we Gambians, we never wish to have the TRRC, but circumstances beyond our control made us to have a TRRC, which of course is a very, very important body. Without you people, the stories would have been swept under the carpet, and people will continue to live in pain for the rest of their life. So I thank you for a job well done. And I want to say to all Gambians, especially those who have information that could be useful to this body, to come forward and share their information. That's my concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Mendy, for those wonderful remarks and the support for the Commission. The work that we have been assigned to do is indeed establish the truth that would help us in reconciliation and healing in the country. Thank you so much for your testimony, and thank you also for the support that you have given as a splendid educationist. Your concern for pupils, your concern for the community is indeed commendable. Again, thank you so much for that. Council, are we ready with the third witness for the afternoon? Please inform us.
Indeed, we are ready, and it will be, I believe, a short testimony. So I believe if we return at 3 o'clock, we'll hopefully finish at 4, or not long after that.
Thank you very much. We will resume at 3 o'clock, and if necessary, go until midnight. Thank you. Meeting is adjourned. No problem.
Chairman, you're dealing with very